Hey Slugs! Today we're talking about the LEGO Space CMF Series. Overall, they're fine for what they are, but I'm not really into collectible minifigures, so I doubt I'll be picking any of these up anytime soon. And if this was a YouTube short, that's where I'd end the video. But since it's not, let's keep slugging around. So why make a video about something I'm only tacitly interested in? Well, that's a question I'd like to ask all the folks who wanted me to do this. I think in reality it's because I'm a LEGO Space fan, and therefore I think folks wanted to know my opinion on the newest LEGO Space stuff. And here we are, 2024, we got some new LEGO Space stuff, let's talk about it. So I think my general impressions of this series are fairly positive, at least upon the released product here, but it wasn't always that way. It certainly didn't start that way. So let's go back in time a little bit to when these figures were first rumored. When we only had text rumors to begin with here, I really thought this was going to be something along the lines of LEGO City Space or LEGO in Space. I wasn't getting my hopes up at all. However, as we started to see more proper LEGO Space sets being released, it started to change and we got more visual clues as to what to expect from this collectible minifigures line. When this initial image first dropped, I think I was disappointed to say the least. What it looked like to me was there were only 3 reimagined figures in this 12-figure lineup, which seemed to consist of a rather hodgepodge assortment of characters. I wasn't really seeing a theme tying everything together. It just seemed to be a collage of random LEGO Space ideas kind of collected all at once. Moreover, the reimagined characters all looked bad to me. I thought they looked pretty bad. The M-Tron one especially, from this first image, yikes. I was not looking forward to that. As folks started getting these figures into their hands and we got better, higher quality photos of them, I think I started to come around to the idea, or was at least warming up to becoming more receptive of these figures. While I don't really see any of them as being great, they all range from meh to pretty good, and I guess that's alright. I don't know. It certainly would be a lot more of an engaging video if I had very polarizing opinions of them, but here we are, what can I say? I think they're all right. Instead of going through them all one by one and basically regurgitating the opinion that it's fine, it's okay, I think it's gonna be more effective if we just take a look at a few of the standout items here, rather than talk about all 12 and give them all basically a lukewarm, middling response. So if we're talking about the series as a whole, I think the biggest strength here is that it is LEGO Space. It wasn't what I was fearing it was going to become, which was some sort of LEGO City Space collectible series, like 12 different astronauts or like ground staff crew and this and that. That's honestly what I thought they were going to do with this sort of stuff. So I'm glad it wasn't that in the end. This is definitely more exciting, more creative. So that's a big plus. It is LEGO Space, and they get their own minifigure collectible series, and that's cool. So I think where this series kind of loses me a bit is in the execution. Now, normally, just across the board, I'm not a huge fan of the CMF series of minifigures. Year after year, they do different collections of them, and I always just feel like it's kind of like a mismatch of weird ideas kind of mushed together. I don't really see them as belonging together in the same universe, the same LEGO universe, I guess. With the LEGO Space series in particular here, some of these ideas would fit together in a LEGO Space like mock or diorama or something like that, but some of them are very different, and I don't think they would belong as easily. You can't just fit the M-Tron guy and the Space Tourist together in the same environment. I don't think they really fit. That's my opinion, at least. Feel free to have a different one, of course. But in general, I'm not a huge fan of how they decided to do some retro characters, or reimagined characters, I should say, and the majority of other figures being not that, right? So I think if they were going to do the retro reimagined figure thing, that should have been the whole series. Do 12 figures like that. You've got more than enough material to work with. And I might sound a bit jaded here, but it's always the same usual suspects getting representation. M-Tron, Ice Planet, Blacktron, this is not the first time these themes have been referenced in modern LEGO sets, but I want to see Explorians, Insectoids, Roboforce. There's so much untapped potential within LEGO Space, especially within the late 90s, and LEGO seems to avoid it like it's the plague. I just want to see something a little bit more bold or ambitious, rather than the big names that we always see regurgitated over and over again. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. This kind of feels like a half-baked idea, I suppose. And in the vein of half-baked results, we have a couple of figures that are more or less essentially fixer-uppers. So the M-Tron figure as an example, while I do love the power loader arm and the printed tile that's used in its grip there, it's missing its visor, and the reason why is because LEGO no longer creates the color, no longer makes trans neon green, which M-Tron was the progenitor of that color. It's kind of, you can't really separate the two. They belong together so fiercely. So they wanted to do an M-Tron callback figure, but they didn't have the material to be able to do it properly. Now, I know this isn't a huge deal. Like, the obvious solution is you take an M-Tron visor that you have in your collection and you pop it on the figure. And that's great. And I think that they made the right call in this case. If you were gonna do M-Tron, you might as well just leave the visor empty and, let folks put their own visor onto it to fix it. But I think it's still okay to take issue with the idea that it's up to us to fix it, because what came out of the box isn't quite complete. And with interviews from the designers on the Ice Planet figure, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, this was actually intended. This is an intentional aspect of how these figures are probably going to be incorporated into collections. So if we look at the Ice Planet figure, we see another example of this, where there is a transparent orange chainsaw, but it's the wrong color. It's supposed to be trans neon orange. And the designer of the helmet, at least, went on to say that they thought that folks would be able to easily swap it out. It's kind of intended for them to do that. And they even suggested a lore reason as to why this one's a different color. It's because it's powered off, and when they power on, they should look trans neon orange. And I like this idea. I think this is a cool concept to try to explain why the parts are essentially wrong in the kit that we're buying today in the set, and how they can be fixed. But it is still one of those things where you do have to do a little bit of work on your end to kind of fix the thing, because it's not quite there out of the box. And that's why I think it's like a good figure with, some issues. It is a fixer-upper in a way, just like the M-Tron figure as well. By the way, Bricking Up Brad has an amazing video on this LEGO CMF series that I highly recommend you check out. I'll put it up here in the corner or something like that, and at the end of the video as well. Make sure you go watch it. It's great. Ultimately, this kind of shows us the actions of the company at odds with the desires of the designers. It's obvious now that a number of LEGO designers want to invoke these old classic LEGO Space factions and bring them back in some sort of reimagined way. There are people that are very passionate about them working at the LEGO Group right now. However, the company's decisions have made that a less than ideal project idea. By removing two of the most critical colors of LEGO Space from the company's color palette, the LEGO Group is essentially in this weird limbo now where they can no longer recreate sets from the M-Tron series or Ice Planet or many other series that came later on after those two without using counterfeit colors or auxiliary colors that don't quite belong with that series. They're kind of in this weird spot where if they want to do this sort of callback stuff, they no longer have the means to do it. So the final result that we receive here is flawed, but still fine. I guess, you know? I enjoy a lot of the new aspects of these figures. I think the Ice Planet figure has some cool, armor design. The helmet's all right. I'm not a huge fan of the look of it. I think with some more blue printing on it, I would be a bigger fan of the helmet. It's just a little too white right now. And the visor being the wrong color kind of irks me a little bit too. Even though it's printed, it still doesn't quite blend in exactly the way it should, in my opinion. But I do like the attempt to do something new that still belongs to the old series. These are new figures, new units in the faction, and that was a smart call. Rather than just recreating something that has been done before, I like the idea to do something fresh with the theme. Some folks online have done amazing things by mixing and matching old with new, and this really sparks a fire inside of me. I love the look of some of these concoctions that folks have come up with. So the fact that these new collectible minifigures, I should say, are bringing us new molds and new parts to build with, I think that's the big win here. I don't think the figures right out of the box are amazing by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're all right, they're serviceable, but if you put them in the right hands and you do the right stuff with them, I think they can be amazing. So that's great. They allow us to build to greatness. I know I only really talked about 2 figures so far, and it's probably the same 2 that everybody's talking about, so let me give some love to some of the other figures that stand out to me as being pretty cool. For one thing, I think it's awesome that Galaxy Squad is seeing some support all of these years later. A new Bugoid race? That's awesome. So I could definitely see that fitting into well into the mock sort of sphere with that. Also, Bugoids are kind of expensive. I don't know why. Are there a lot of collectors of Galaxy Squad out there? Somebody let me know. But yeah, I was very shocked at the price of a Bugoid. So hopefully this will help keep prices lower. I know there's a Blacktron mutant character in there as well too. I'm not really big on that one. I think the new torso print is fine again, but it's not really what I'm looking for from this sort of stuff. Actually, my favorite figure out of the box, if we're just going with the stock figure, is the robot nurse and the little space baby. I think that's a great pairing, and the design work of the robot nurse, so cool and really usable in any sort of LEGO Space City mock, right? All you need is a little space doctor's office, and now you've got the perfect nurse to work there. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this figure. Of them all, besides your Ice Planet and your M-Tron ones, if I were to pick one up in the future, I think it would be the Space Nurse. Yeah, I like this one a lot. And that train of thought kind of leads me into this next discussion. Why am I not buying these things? And the reasons are varied, but let's go through them. So in general, I really don't like the sales practice behind the CMF series, which is why I try not to get invested in them. The idea of blind bag, or now blind box minifigures, it just makes my skin crawl. I really hate this. And I've been trying to rack my head around why. I don't understand why this in particular makes me just run for the hills. And it might be because I never really bought into the whole like trading card game, like your Pokemon cards or your Digimon, Yu-Gi-Mon, whatever, card packs and opening those things. That's sort of like childhood gambling. I never really did that. And when I see it here and I see the LEGO group doing it, I'm just kind of, it feels yucky to me. I don't like it. I hate to be Grandpa Slugger, but back in my day, you just buy the figure that you wanted. It was printed on the box, you bought the box, you opened the box, you get the figure. Even though I know you can feel around in the bags to find the figure you're looking for, or nowadays I guess you're using a barcode scanner on the bottom of it, I just don't want any of my money actually going to the LEGO group for these figures. I'm much more comfortable buying them secondhand later on down the road, because I don't want to support this practice at all, to be honest. I don't exactly know every aspect of the LEGO Group's reasoning as to why they switched from bags to boxes. It could be they didn't want people feeling around for the figures, or they could claim it was environmentally friendly to switch to boxes. I don't really know. But at the end of the day, if there are individual barcodes that can be scanned on each different box, that also means there could be individual artwork showing each figure inside the box, right? It's meant to be a gamble intentionally, and I take a lot of issue with that. I don't want to play into that, so yeah, I choose not to. I think the second biggest reason why I'm not really into these collectible minifigures is that I'm not really a minifigure collector in general. I know some folks go nuts for minifigures. LEGO is all about the minifigures to them, and they're happy just having one-off minifigures that look cool. And to them, that's awesome. I think that's great. I'm glad there's people out there that are like that. I'm not really like that myself, though. I'm into LEGO for the sets and the series. I like having, a through line. And even though I do collect a lot of minifigures, they all belong to a series. And they kind of, they have that world they inhabit. With a lot of CMF figures, they're basically orphans. They kind of belong to no series. They just kind of exist, and a lot of times when I look at some of them, I wish there was a series that existed around them. And maybe that's where the builder or the mockist is supposed to step in and create that world for them. And that's cool. Maybe it's the first step in creativity. But when it comes to a collecting side of things, that's not really what I'm into. I really do prefer just collecting some of the themes that already exist, and then I can build my own mocks outside of that, and build my own characters and whatnot for those purposes. So CMF figures, they don't really belong to a universe for the most part, and that's why I also don't end up collecting them. At this point, I also don't really need any more Ice Planet, M-Tron, or Blacktron figures, for that matter. So, honestly, or LEGO Space figures in general, I've got a lot of them. So, yeah, I'm not rushing out to get any of these. Like, if I see them locally, secondhand, and I don't have to play the gambling game, and my money isn't going to the LEGO Group for these products, then I might pick them up. You never know down the road. I definitely have some interest in LEGO Space, obviously, and some of these figures seem pretty cool, but yeah. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the LEGO Space CMF series. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Next time, I'll probably be talking about something different. Who knows? Who cares? See you next time, slugs. Oh yeah, go watch this video. It's so good. You won't regret it. Go watch it. Go watch this video.